আমাৰ আজিৰ এই বক্তৃতা অনুষ্ঠানৰ মধ্যমণি আৰু দিল্লী বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ অধ্যাপক ডক্টৰ প্ৰকাশ পাটনায়কক ইতিমধ্যে তেখেতৰ পৰিচয়টো আমাৰ মাজত দাঙি ধৰিলে আৰু তেখেতৰ কেনেকৈ অসমৰ বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়সমূহৰ লগত বিশেষকৈ গুৱাহাটী বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ লগত এটা বিশেষ সম্পৰ্ক আছে মানে বিশেষকৈ গৱেষণা আৰু শৈক্ষিক ক্ষেত্ৰখনত এই সম্পৰ্কেও দুআষাৰ ক'লে। Now I request Professor P.C. Pattanaik to speak on today's topic. The topic is the in search of commonalities in Indian languages. Dr. Banikanta Kakati's contribution towards this. This is the topic, sir, today, and he accepted our invitation at a very short notice, but as already he is very much interested in the study of language and literature of Northeast India, and also earlier he has attended one seminar relating to Banikanta Kakati's contribution. So he readily accepted it, and he showed very great interest to pay tribute to our great soul. So, Professor Pattanaik, today you are among us, and please enlighten us with your lecture. We are eagerly waiting to hear. Now, I request Professor Pattanaik to speak on the topic. Welcome, sir.
Okay, now I think it has been connected. Okay.
Could you hear me, sir?
Yes, there is no problem. 5 seconds. Honorable Vice Chancellor, the head of the department, Professor Linguistics, Professor Commonalities, the other from the Department of Assamese University, officers of listeners, and the students of Gauhati University. It is my duty to thank the organizers for choosing me. I'm partly handicapped, not fully. In the sense that I cannot speak in Assamese language, but I understand, and I understand the Professor state and Professor in the beginning. Speak that question about Dr. Banikanta Kakati's contribution or his personal life, because this has been told again and again, and perhaps since it is the 10th lecture, perhaps the same thing must have been dealt very extensively by various scholars. From the list of the scholars who delivered lectures in the past, since I know most of them, I feel privileged now that the department thought I match to those scholarship to some extent, which I am not. When Dr. Deka talked to me, initially I was reluctant. What he said is correct. The time is short. Perhaps I may not be able to deliver the best. Then I agreed. I thought at least I can share my association with the people of Assam, the language and culture of Assam, through this meeting. Meeting in the sense we are meeting through Google Meet. And the topic that was suggested by me was in search of commonalities in Indian languages, remembering Dr. Banikanta Practical Studies of Language and Culture of Assam. I stopped at language and culture. So when I try to divide my topic, the second part of the topic becomes more fascinating to me now, remembering Dr. Banikanta Kakati's contribution. You see, this is the third occasion where I come in contact with such gatherings where we are remembering Dr. Banikanta Kakati's contributions. One such occasion was arranged by us in Delhi University, that is the centenary celebration of Banikanta Kakati in the year 1994. And I was greatly associated with Mamani Vaido in organizing that event. And to our arrangement, the caller came from Gauhati University. Gauhati University accepted our request and sponsored in the sense they took care, the Vice Chancellor, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of that time took care of the TA and DA of 4 scholars from the Department of Assamese who participated. The second occasion was last year in 1994, Honorable Vice Chancellor, 2019. Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Handik was also present there. And that was a national seminar organized by the Department of Modern Indian Language and Literary Studies, Gauhati University, in the month of November. And third occasion is today. And third occasion is my turn to remember or to make all of us remember Dr. Banikanta Kakati through his contributions. And also focus on the first part of the topic, that is commonalities in Indian languages. Because being a faculty of Department of Indian Language and Literary Studies, that has been engaged in looking at the commonalities of language and culture of India, I thought this should be the right topic of discussion for today. But before going to the first part of my discussion, I am now tempted to deal more on the second part. That look, the great scholar, Dr. Banikanta Kakati, originally a student of literature. From the little information I have, I know that he had excelled both in Sanskrit as well as English literature. Did honors from Cotton College in English literature and then moved to Presidency College to do MA program in English literature. And after even doing English literature, he was not happy. He had to go for a second MA in Calcutta University, and where he worked exclusively on English language. And while dealing with English language, he must have come in contact with the linguists, then growing linguists, then the non-linguists, Suniti Kumar Chatterjee, whom he has accepted as his guru. But again, what happened after getting 2 degrees, doing his PhD in linguistics, he returned back to his homeland. Of course, in between, he went to do his PhD to Calcutta University. He worked as the professor of English in Cotton College. These are the information all of us know. For the audience who know little about Dr. Banikanta Kakati, I am just repeating, and then very precisely. And then he did the administrative job, the great responsibility of principal of Cotton College. And we know the Cotton College, how important that college was. Now it has turned to be done to an university. So, but irrespective of that thing, what we notice from his work is his love for mother tongue. He worked on Indian language. Imagine, in 1925-30, he preferred to work on Assamese language, and he was allowed to do so by his teachers, by his parents, which even not possible now in 2020. If anyone wants to take Assamese as a subject, the parents will have objection first. And that is not only Assamese, that is true to all vernaculars, all Indian languages. And an English student working on Assamese culture, again, is not easily acceptable to people. Even that we face now, our students who come from English literature background, though they are fascinated to work on Indian culture, Indian language, Indian literature, but they do not get green signal easily from their parents. So this is the real situation. But we can imagine what would have been the situation then at that time. But irrespective of all these things, he preferred to work on the mother tongue, the society, that is Assamese society, Assamese culture, mythology, religion, philosophy, leading to Shankaradev's Vaishnavite philosophy. So quick look at his educational career, and the time is important. And why I am repeating this, there is a reason behind it. From schooling in Assam and then doing post-graduation in Calcutta, from Assamese literature and Sanskrit to doing MA English literature and language, and then getting a degree after working on Assamese language. That is Assamese, its formation and development. The work was highly acclaimed by Professor Imun, University of California, Berkeley, who found it as groundbreaking in many ways. This is interesting. When I speak about the commonalities, or when I move to identify some common elements in Indian languages, I remember Professor Iman. And to be very frank, I have lots of appreciation to Iman's work, that he produced a paper that has become a landmark for the Indian linguists to work on Indian languages. Indian linguists today who are working on typology, language typology, aerial linguistics, they do not go beyond, or they do not contribute much what has been done by Imano. So he came in contact with Imano, who had appreciation for his works. So by looking this career, educational career, from Assam to Calcutta, I tried to explore some possibilities, which perhaps you may agree or may not. Look, he was in Presidency College and Calcutta University. And the tradition that college and Calcutta University both were showing. Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee was the Vice Chancellor, and he had paid much attention to Indian languages during his Vice Chancellorship. To the extent he had created research centers in Bengali, Hindi, Pali, and Sanskrit. He was from science background, but irrespective of his science background, Even struggling with the colonial administrator, he tried to work exclusively on Indian languages. I remember there was a volume published in 1919 edited by Vijay Chandra Majumdar, and it was about the language and literature of Eastern India. And some portion of 16th, 17th century Oriya texts are found in that volume, and the editorial of which was written by Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee. Then come to Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. Ashutosh Mukherjee's son Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was also a very good student who was studying English literature, honors in English literature with good percentage of marks, very good and rank holder. But his father told him to take MA Bengali, to study Bengali language. So this was some kind of inspiration, perhaps, I'm talking about the possibility, perhaps was there. Then, of course, Suniti Kumar Chatterjee, which Dr. Kakati has acknowledged, and his guru. Another possibility or another addition to this possibility is it was during that time Rabindranath Tagore got Nobel Prize for Gitanjali for a text that is in English, that is in Indian language text, Gitanjali. So, and Suniti Kumar Chatterjee and Rabindranath Tagore, they had traveled during that time extensively to different places to give lectures on Indian art and culture. And being his student, it is quite obvious that Banikanta Kakati got inspired by Suniti Kumar Chatterjee to the maximum extent. Of course, that is not a new information. But its work, the origin and development of Bengali language, his research work in 1926, has certainly shown a way to work on Indian language, and that is his mother tongue, Assamese language. Along with Chatterjee, whom Dr. Kakati has admitted that Jules Bloch, a French linguist who has worked on the formation of Marathi language and the grammars of the Dravidian languages. Interestingly, Bloch's works also have contributed to the idea propagated by Ibunu in the later stage. Not only that he has influenced, interestingly, both Kakati and Chatterjee, Suniti Kumar Chatterjee and Dr. Banikanta Kakati, both have influenced one Oriya scholar, Dr. Kunja Bihari Tripathi, who is also originally from Sanskrit background. And then he took linguistics as a subject and got PhD for his work, The Evolution of Oriya Language and Script from London University. Both Suniti Kumar Chatterjee and Kunja Bihari Tripathi, also Dr. Banikanta Kakati. If you see the work, these works are the first of this kind in Eastern India. There are other works of course, in South India and other parts of the country. But my focus is what has happened in Eastern India. And why so? Is it because they are trained? Their knowledge of English is good? They are trained under a good linguist? Or they have joined in good institution? It is difficult to conclude that what exactly the reason. but there is a possibility. If you look at the time, there was a spirit of nationalism as its peak. And nationalism again starts from motherland and mother tongue. And we have regional songs around 1930, we had regional songs. So regional language and literature were the priority that time in order to retain the identity. Perhaps this idea was injected in Dr. Banikanta Kakati's during his stay in Calcutta. So the analysis technique, I'm talking about the analytical. The analysis technique he applied, he got from Sunita Kumar Chatterjee. And because she was already a linguist, but there the approach was slightly different. Perhaps the present day linguists will not understand the situation. I remember that was the time when no one knew what is linguistics. Of course, this scenario is not different even now. If you tell someone that you are a linguist, the reply will come, how many languages you know. So linguistics was not popular. And what the focus was more on the philology. And there was a department in Calcutta University known as Comparative Philology. So when we say comparative philology, philology talks or teaches us to go for a descriptive analysis. And descriptive analysis confined within three things. That is, one is phonology, then comes morphology, and then comes the syntax. Even no priority was given to semantics that time. And if we look at Dr. Banikanta Kakati's work, we'll find how it is divided into the three parts. One is the introduction, of course, very long introduction, and that talks many things. Then comes the phonology, and then the morphology. Why I am trying to link Banikanta Kakati's work with the idea propagated by Immuno. I will tell you what is that. Propagated by Immuno is that this analysis has provided materials for Immuno to come out with such kind of construction that is India as a linguistic area in 1956, which precisely, if we go for a working definition, there is one language structure among Indian languages. Not one language, one structure of Indian language we find. So his knowledge of linguistics or philology provided him the great tool to analyze Assamese language. Therefore, the tool is more descriptive and analytical. And that led for the comparative analysis or comparative philology studies. And it will not be exaggeration because I know personally some linguists. And there are two types of linguists you find in Indian languages. Those who have the proper degree of linguistics or comparative philology from Calcutta University, and those who have become linguists through practice. They have written something, they have analyzed. So many people have worked, and they are from Assam. And particularly the professors of Gauhati University, Department of Assamese, and Dibrugarh University. Personally, I know most of them. I know about their works, though I have not read all, but know about their works. But can any such work, can anyone's work will match Dr. Banikanta Kakati's is a matter of discussion, matter of debate. So, a level, he has fixed a level, and that is difficult to achieve. And the modern day linguists, there are 3 departments of linguistics now in Assam, in Gauhati, on Tejpur and Silchar. And there are the linguists who are working, who are teaching. They are interested in other things, but no one is interested in historical linguistics now. So this is the present scenario, but I'm not here to comment on that. But in order to show how important this tool was, to reach at a conclusion, and that conclusion is there is one language structure among Indian languages. And that was formed or structured by a Professor Imon. When I agreed to deliver this lecture, and just before 2 days, Professor Decker told me to be as simple as possible. And I told my language is simple. He also gave me an idea that you should also think of using Hindi. But I don't think my Hindi is that good. But keeping that in mind, some examples while discussing the features of Indian languages, I will take some examples from Assamese. And that will be of interest to the students who have joined this program. When we do descriptive analysis of a language, first of all, we do not separate the society from it without naming it as sociolinguistics. And the linguists of that period were collecting informations themselves. They were not taking the help of informants indirectly. They were collecting information themselves. And they start analyzing there itself. In order to work on phonetics and phonology, we had no lab to actually study that part, study the sounds of a language. So linguists were told to listen and watch. So there are 2 things needed. One is to train your ears, how do you listen the sound? And of course, looking at the expressions, the meaning can be formed. So with much difficulty, the phonetics and phonology part was there. And that same thing happened in Oriya, Professor Golak Bihari Dhalal. The phonetics of Oriya language, or the phonetics of Hindi language he has talked about. It's difficult to even think similar work now. Then comes to morphology, we have words. And while dealing with the words, we isolate. These words are the original words. These are the borrowed words coming from West, from Persian source, Perso-Arabic source, or from Sanskrit source in the form of Tadbhav, Tascham. And these informations provided a platform for Imono to think for the commonalities. The story did not end there. The interesting part is yet to come. He went further and he has this attempted twice on this. One in the year 1956, the first publication, and the second publication came in 1972, revisiting India as a linguistic area. So, which are the elements he preferred to collect and show that there is a unique structure and unique components are available in Indian languages which are not available in other languages of the world. So he has identified, and I will go for the Assamese, deliberately not giving Oriya or Hindi examples, Assamese examples. One such is the duplication. The linguists today, they say reduplication, but personally, I accept only duplication, not reduplication. Duplication is we repeat one word twice, or sometimes maybe thrice. And sometimes the grammarians, they think there is a reason to this. Suppose if I say ghare ghare, I can say the meaning is from house to house. But if I say bate bate, the meaning will not be from bate to bate. Ranga ranga, ranga is enough, but ranga ranga, nila nila, dangar dangar, haru haru, there is no need. This is not the structure, or we will not find in English or any other language. But this is the beauty of Indian language. It is not only in Assamese, it is in Bengali, it is in Oriya, it is in Dravidian language, it is also in Aztec languages, Aztec and Muda group of languages. Among Tibeto-Burman languages, I don't know whether it is there or not. Even Imono did not touch that, and he said he had no data from Tibeto-Burman languages. The second such example comes the echo words, pratidhanyatmak, pani duni, latter petter, thin min, dhonpit. And in Hindi we have roti vati, khana wana, pani wani. In all the languages, this construction we find. And this was not discussed earlier by the linguists. Linguists had not taken these items for their linguistic analysis. It was left to the grammarians. And those who were writing grammars, they were only identified. So, and it has influenced us so much, this eco-construction, and accepted by our culture in such a way that even we forget where we are supposed to use, where we are not supposed to use. Therefore, we say, was das office tapis. That is also possible. The same way the Assamese is constructed, we find eco-construction. The same construction we apply to English language, knowing very well that there is no duplication in English. But we are influenced in such a way. If I say, "May I come in, sir?" I will automatically tell, "Come, come." Because in Assam it's aha, aha. So that is the influence of the local language while we speak English. Then we have some paired words, bhat pani, khel dimali, ghar baire, bat pat, gari ghoda. In Oriya also this is gari ghoda. We have also some onomatopoeic words, cuckoo, knock knock, tick tick. But this second time when Imono focused, he focused more on the classifiers and quantifiers. You see the same structure we find almost all Indian languages. Eta kukur, duta kukur, tinta kukur, 1, 2, 3. This counting system. Eta lora, duta lora, tinta lora. And in order to make honorific, and that perhaps came in much later stage, Lorajan, Manohajan. We have on tendency to make it more definite than we say Kapar Khan, the cloth, Kitab Khan, the book, Bahi Khan, the copy, Lorato, the boy, Manohato, the man, Kukuto, the dog. So this is the way we go on constructing our classifiers, quantifiers, and in order to make a sentence or expression definite one. Such examples are also available in plural markers. Bor, Bilak, Moka, these are the prefix used. Pahar bor, Nadi bor, Rajya bor, Desh bor. And another interesting point to have the gender classification. And that is also there in all, languages of Eastern India in the same structure. And also we find in Aztec language, because I have worked on a language that belongs to Aztec language family, that is Juan. And therefore we say Hajarika, Hajarikani, Sahitya, Sahityani, Borua, Boruani. We add, and the name differentiates from feminine to masculine. Masculine to feminine. Then, of course, we have some words that we have taken directly from Sanskrit. We do not make much changes on that. Chhatra, Chhatri, Kumar, Kumari, Tarun, Turani, Sundar, Sundari, that kind of thing. But when it comes to animal world, we don't find for all animals separate words. We try to apply that structure, Bag, Bagini, Viral, Virali, or Hiran, Harin, Harini, Hasti, Hastini, kind of thing. But to some animals, we identify in a different way. That is adding male and female. Mota Sagali, Maiki Sagali. Mota Kukur, Maiki Kukur. Mota Kukura, Maiki Kukura. So the same structure we find in all the Indian languages irrespective of the languages belonging to different language family. Then we have common question words, and that right now I'll give example that is just to remind you. I know all the examples are there in our mind. All the question words in Indo-Aryan language starts with ka, the sound ka. And the way in English we have WH questions, ours is ka question in all Indo-Aryan languages. And similarly, there is another question form for Dravidian and another for Aztec languages. But what is more interesting that also, pointed out by Imono, we knew it, but we did not consider it as a separate or a peculiarity of one of the peculiarities of Indian languages before Imono pointed out in that article. The amount of language, amount of other language we use in our conversation. And he kept it in two. And this reminds me my discussion with Professor Tarani Deka when he said me to mix, that is, mixing two languages. And sometimes we mix more than two languages also. And it has gone so much to our conversation pattern, so much to the process of socialization, that every day the number of such uses are increasing. You find I'm talking about the spoken form. I'm not talking about the written language. Of course, in writings also it has its influence. That while speaking a sentence in one expression, we mix another language, and that is at least English. Believing that the communication will work properly if the other languages are added to it to make it more, a kind of simplified version of the expression. Once I developed interest to find out from my colleagues, students, and friends, a translation of one sentence, that is, I miss you. And to my utter surprise, and you will be also surprised to know that no language, no Indian language has an equivalent of miss. And all the translation I got, that word miss is inside. Mo miss karuche, moi miss kariyo, that kind of expressions. Main miss karta hu, but that is there. And the speaker doesn't think that he or she is not speaking the language correctly. The purpose is communication, and communication takes place. The purpose of language ends there. And our culture is such that we accept such mixing. That is called code mixing. And code shifting is another such example. You start your conversation in one language, then end in another language. Also sometimes in between. I have taken some sentences. Normally the way the students nowadays talk in colleges or over phone, and this credit of giving these sentences to me goes to my colleague and once upon a time student, Dr. Ratnatama Das. One point she says, ki khabar? Toi je iman dine karo, touchat nahi, there is no touch. Then we don't identify that the speaker has used one word, that is English word. Then formality baat de, khabar ka. Tell me what is the news, leave the formality. Then nothing special. Just break at a issue from social media and all. Again, starting and ending in another language. And among the students, the yar is very common now. These are not the examples of Imano because that time yar was not there. Are yar, at least, mokta toy ki haisil bindas kobo pare. Ki kamor dias kolo to eka hua nahi. Believe me, in one expression, we frequently use this type of expression taken from English language. And when there is an addition somewhere, another example is, I am so happy कि कोई phone kali. I'm so happy that actually tempted me to call you. That key again is difficult to know. It is an Assamese word or Hindi word. But what has happened, our culture has accepted it. We don't point out that someone is speaking bad Assamese or good Assamese because mixing many things in that language. And credit goes to the TV channels, Korea TV channels, Assamese TV channels, and Bangladesh TV channels, all Indian language TV channels. The anchor, when the anchor speaks, it is difficult if you minutely judge, keeping our linguistic knowledge in mind. It will be difficult to know whether the person is speaking English, Assamese, or a new language, something like that. And this has till Immunus collection, it was restricted to the morphology part, vocabulary, or maybe the part of the sentence. Now the entire sentence has been changed, and you will find TV anchors, when they speak, they are changing the order of the sentence. That is, subject, object, and verb. They make it like English, that subject, verb, and object. SOV becomes SBO. So these items, considering the peculiarities, Immuno was collected from the sources which was contributed by the scholars like Dr. Banikanta Kakati and Chatterjee or K.V. Tripathi, or there are others, much more, people from South India. He came out with this idea that India as a linguistic area, there is a linguistic area. And he explained in his article, the last paragraph in the footnote, he has explained language from more than one family, but showing traits in common, which are found not to belong other members of one of the families. Originally, it is from one language, belonging to one family, but it has even jumped beyond that family and gone to another language families. And his data was from 3 language families, Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, and Austric or, Munda language family. He admitted that he had no data from Tibata Burman, but he said there is a possibility of extending this to a larger linguistic area. And what are the reasons? Why these things are so prominent and common in all the Indian languages? The number one reason is the contact situation. One group coming in contact with another group for various reasons. And when we come closer, 2 groups come closer, the borrowing takes place. One group borrows the sounds, not deliberately, unconsciously, words, sometimes deliberately, and even the sentences from another group. And that has exactly happened in India. Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, in his introduction, in his inaugural address, he gave a list of many languages touching the linguistic diversity of this country and how diverse the linguistic situation of this country. And when there are many linguistic communities live in one place, they come in contact with each other, the borrowing takes place, and that is obvious, and no one can check that. These informations, these peculiarities have dominated the components identified by the linguists in their descriptive or analytical studies when it comes to Indian languages. And many linguists of the country, particularly in South India, they are busy in looking at this thing. But you'll be surprised, there are examples, their mode of analysis, and their approach to study Indian languages in a comparative perspective remains the same. They have not gone beyond what Imano has said. So coming back to the last part of the lecture, because I remember the time given to me, last part of the lecture, that coming back to Dr. Kakati's work, if the students wants to have a knowledge of the Assamese language, the structure, and interested in both descriptive and historical linguistics, they should reach the original. Even my advice to the student of Assamese literature, students of Assamese literature, आप सबको मेरा निवेदन है, आप पढ़िए Banikanta Kakati's original work. I know what we are doing. We means, of course, you here, but to be more polite, I will say to what we are doing. We are going through the translation. मैं जानता हूं आप लोग के पास एक अच्छा ट्रांसलेशन है विश्वेश्वर हजारिका जी का असमिया भाषार गठन और क्रम विकास, वो भी पढ़िए, ओरिजिनल भी थोड़ा देखिए क्या है ओरिजिनल में. We are also reading the work of other linguists from Assam, and that is fine. I have nothing to say on those works. But when it comes to Kakati's work is also important even today, and it has its importance. If we decide that our language, that means Assamese language, to get classical status, and if tomorrow some of you will be interested in bringing out a volume to claim Assamese classical status, to submit it before the government of India, claiming that Assamese should be given classical status, the work of Banikanta Kakati, I'm sure the work of Banikanta Kakati will be eye-opener, and that will be treasure for you. When the report will be made, this work of Dr. Banikanta Kakati will give you enough information. And not only that, we also need information on Assamese culture, the studies on Assamese culture, which Banikanta Kakati has also shown while talking about the Kamakhya, goddess Kamakhya, when talking about Kalita, Jatir, Itivrata, or something like that, about the society, about the mythology, about the philosophy, and particularly the Shankaradev's Vaishnavite traditions. So these are the treasures for us. With this, we can proceed to think that how our language is going to be recognized not only in the country but internationally. While saying so, I am not saying that Assamese is not recognized as a language. Actually, I refer to this classical status. If we want seriously, then think of it. And there should be more research. Students should work on Banikanta Kakati's works. And taking clue from Banikanta Kakati's work, they should go to the field, work on language, culture, mythology, and come out with excellent works as their research product. With this, I take this opportunity again to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to deliver this lecture, and nothing much to say. So I am greatly indebted that I have been honored by getting some of such opportunities from Gauhati University, and particularly I am indebted to organizers, both the Department of Assamese Gauhati University and Barpeta Sahitya Sabha. Thank you.